Hey guys, how you doing today? As you guys know, I'm doing a stream with Lily Even. She is a relatively new YouTuber who's had some pretty entertaining and strong views on MGTOW. Lily, go ahead and say hello to everybody.
Hey everyone, welcome to the stream. Hope you're having fun so far.
Yeah, right on. So Lily and I have talked a little bit kind of behind the scenes just to make sure that we could be civil even in areas of disagreement. And I think it's going to be a good stream. I think it's going to be a good stream. So, and is the sounding okay for both of us?
Well, I'm gonna hope that purple hair on. I like that.
There you go. Go ahead. Yeah, and there's going to be a little bit of a lag. So, yeah, guys, if you can hear Lily okay, just make sure that we know. Go ahead and talk, Lily.
Well, I don't know what to say, guys. Hopefully the sound is okay. My accent is terrible. I apologize in advance.
Oh, that's okay. That's quite all right. So, I wanted to kind of dive into some of your videos and, you know, ask you some questions about the videos, but I want to go ahead and get some of the base questions out first before we get started. Do you consider yourself a feminist?
No.
Why not?
Of course not. Because I don't like everything that they stand for, and I don't like classing myself as a group of anything anyway.
All right, so when you say you don't like everything they stand for, what is it about feminism that you oppose?
For one thing, the hypocrisy. Like, they say they're about equality, but that is not true in the slightest from anything that I've ever seen.
So would you say that it's fair to say that feminism is a hate group and a female supremacy group?
I would definitely say it has aspects of hate in it, and I would also say it's probably a superiority group.
Okay. So, you know, as I look at your image, and I've seen a few of your videos, I have to ask, are you a lesbian? You know, you have purple hair, so I have to ask.
Oh, God, totally.
Okay. And then, of course, that leads me to the next most important question is, are you a trap?
Do I get to keep no secrets? Oh, my goodness.
Okay. So I'm going to assume by that you're not a trap for purposes of this stream.
Unfortunately, I'm just not that good, no.
Okay. And do you consider yourself a socialist or a communist or a capitalist?
Not really. Again, that would be grouping, sort of. I just consider myself a person of the mostly human species.
And do you consider yourself more of a liberal or a conservative?
Technically, I'm going to have to say liberal because I lean that way slightly, but general, I'm fairly dead center.
Okay. Now, when we talked earlier, you shared your opinion with me about white knights and the people trying to defend you on social media, and you shared your thoughts about that. So my question for you is, will you share your thoughts about white knights and the whole nice guys who try to defend you on social media here, so people can kind of get an example of what your views are there?
I don't want anyone defending me. I feel like that's just strange and probably detracts from the point. Plus, they open themselves up to a whole bunch of hate, and from what I've seen, it's clear that lots of them can't handle it, so I'd rather they just say nothing at all.
So really, cuck lives don't matter?
Sure, let's go with that.
All right. So let's go ahead and dive into your first video. Actually, do you have any preliminary questions of me or anything that you want to say before we jump into the videos?
I think I was going to save most of my questions till last, but I can ask a couple now if you'd like.
Sure, go for it.
All right, so from your point of view, what exactly is this MGTOW philosophy? What do you consider it to be?
So obviously, a lot of people believe that MGTOW is a lifestyle. I believe it's a combination of lifestyle and philosophy together. And I believe it's a philosophy that basically the man finds value within himself as opposed to value based on feminist validation or gynocentric validation. For example, if a guy goes to the gym, is he going to the gym so that he could look good to get a better mate, or is he going to the gym to be fit so he can be healthier for a longer period of time? And,
well, one would hope he's doing it for himself.
One would hope that, but there's a lot of thirsty guys that are gym rats that go there and they're like, I'm tired of masturbating, so I need to go get in shape to try to get laid. And, there's a lot to do that. So,
I guess in a way that makes them happy though, so it is doing it for them.
Well, I don't know that I would agree with that. But I think that as far as the philosophy and lifestyle is concerned, it's basically living for yourself and not needing gynocentric validation. So you don't necessarily need to cohabitate or commit or marry a woman in order to be considered successful in life. And there's a lot of guys out there who are successful who've done none of those things. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio is one of them, and until George Clooney cucked himself, he was one as well. So
yeah.
So that's kind of that's my thoughts on the whole philosophy lifestyle thing. And I think it's and here's the thing. I think it's a philosophy and a lifestyle because I think the philosophy allows you to implement the lifestyle, so they go hand in hand.
Okay, so probably the last question I'll ask you for right now. Do you think it should be like a forever, permanent, absolute state, or do you think there should be room for it to change?
I definitely think that there should be room for it to change. Do I think it's going to change? Absolutely not. I mean, and I've told people this before. I'm MGTOW because it, based on logic, reason, facts, and observable reality. I'm MGTOW because it's not reasonable and not realistic to commit to a woman anymore or to cohabitate or to get married, because if you do a cost-benefit analysis, the risks are far higher than the reward. And the analogy I use is this. Let's say you and I are business partners, right? We're talking about going into business together, and we want to create a partnership. Now, I'm going to go in with the partnership, and I'm basically going to say, Lily, we're going to go into a partnership. Every year that we're in the partnership, there is a 46% chance that this partnership is going to fail. If it fails, there is a 70% chance that I'm going to be responsible for the failure exclusively. If I'm responsible for the failure, part of the reason is going to be because I've taken our business trade secrets and I've shared them with other people behind your back. I've also embezzled money, and I've been pretty much dishonest with you the entire time. Now, if you catch me, if our business fails and you catch me and you're like, you know what, DDJ, I'm taking you to court and fuck you, I'm going to hold you accountable. You're going to take me to court, and I can falsely accuse you of sexual assault. I can falsely accuse you of rape or harassment or being a pedophile or any kind of defamation I want to do. And the court's going to believe me because I'm me. I'm DDJ. They're not going to listen to you at all. And the more you try to fight it, the worse you're going to look. And if I'm successful, there's a good chance they're going to put you in jail. But more importantly, they could take your license away from you. They can prevent you having access to any of the business resources at all. And more importantly, if you try to fight me on this, they can raid your bank account. They can take your personal property and completely screw you over. Knowing those things and knowing the extreme amount of risk is involved, Lily, do you still want to go into business with me?
Of course not.
Absolutely not. So why would a smart MGTOW man, after conducting such a cost-benefit analysis, want to get married, commit, or cohabitate to a woman under those current circumstances?
Look, this is actually where I agree with you, because you're absolutely right. There is no logical reason to do it. But if things were to change, I would hope that some people's position would change on this subject.
Oh, yeah, if things would change, absolutely. I mean, if it went back to a traditionally patriarchal society where male authority was reestablished, I would definitely do that. Because, I mean, there was a balance. I mean, because here's the thing. Everybody talks about equality or equity. What they're talking about is equality and equity of outcomes. They're not talking about equality or equity of effort. And so that's one of the big challenges is that, you have to, you get what you put in. The more that you invest, the more you should be able to get out of it. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss. People want shit for free, and they don't want to work for it. And I think that's a challenge.
Yeah, of course. But they work the system because it's there for them to work, if that makes sense. If it was in men's favor, men would be working the system too.
I mean, that's human nature. Human nature is that you're always going to, take what's advantageous to you. That's why feminism's getting progressively worse. Women have been in power now for 40, 50 years, and they're making the system worse because they can, and it's become abusive to men across the whole entire Western world, everywhere where feminism's been adopted.
Well, hopefully this might be the first step. Having two groups like you and I communicating might be able to bring about change eventually.
Right. And I mean, and so we're all on the same page, guys. I don't think that, I'm going to change Liley's mind, but I want to be able to provide education, not only for you guys to be able to communicate with people who disagree with you in a reasonable way, but also to kind of communicate with those other people who were on the fence. Because the thing about Liley is that Liley's views are more representative of a lot of women, where they support feminism, they benefit from feminism, but they realize that there's a lot of feminist hypocrisy. And Liley, do you feel powerless to change it?
No, not really. I feel like there's things that I could do, but I feel like at the moment I'm powerless to change anything. It's like I'm just one person. I'm a little nobody, and little nobodies get nothing done until they get more power, I suppose.
So you want to be a big nobody. Got it.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Dead on.
Okay. All right. So with that out of the way, you ready to dive into the videos?
Why not? Let's crucify me.
Absolutely. Okay. So your video from October 26th, which is your first MGTOW video, right in the beginning of the video, you actually said you tried to reach out to feminists or people who identified as feminists, but apparently they blocked you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. So I wanted to go and find out what feminism was for myself. Like, I had a vague idea, and I decided it would probably be better to actually go and speak with them. So when I tried talking to them, they all just like blocked me, refused to respond, just everything. And it's continuing now. Like, any feminist I try to talk to now still won't talk to me.
Well, I mean, what are you saying? Are you saying that they're just a bunch of lying cunts and they should fuck off and die? Or are you trying to ask them on dates? I mean, what's going on?
Oh, well, definitely the dates. But
okay.
No, like, I try to ask them normal questions. Like, I ask them to describe what feminism is to me. Sometimes I'll ask them what they think of an issue that men are facing. And they outrightly ignore me, block me, anything. They are so unwilling to educate. They are unwilling to communicate at all, even with another woman like myself with bloody purple hair, and they still won't talk to me.
Right. So you're wearing the uniform and they still won't deal with you anyway. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay. I'm going to interject here real quick. Guys, for those who are watching the stream and you are new to the stream, if this is your first stream, on the lower right hand of your screen, you're going to see my icon in a little gray box. If you click that box when it appears, you can redeem your Bukkake Choke Slams to ask questions if you're on PC or desktop. What that allows me to do is to record all the questions. So at the end of the stream, we're going to have a Q&A session where you can ask questions. Now, if you're watching on a mobile device or you're watching on Roku or you're watching on Twitch TV, you're not going to be able to use that Bukkake Choke Slam box, I believe. I think that one of those you can, but I know on mobile it doesn't work. So if you're on your phone and you want to ask questions during the Q&A session when it starts, you want to put question in brackets and you want it in caps so I can see it in the chat, because I'll be monitoring the chat at that point and basically going ahead and addressing those questions as I hit them. Now, there's no guarantee I'm going to see your question. If you're a booger-eating moron, I'm not going to answer your question. If you're a troll like Nemo, and yeah, Nemo, I saw you in the chat, and you just decide you want to spam questions because, I don't know, you have to talk and you can't shut up, I get it. I'm probably not going to answer all those questions either. So don't be a potato. And if you have questions for Lily, after the question, write Lily's name, Lyli, so that I know that that question is directed for her. And you should, yeah, if you're on, I think it's mobile and Roku, or it might be Twitch TV. I don't remember. I know it's mobile, but I forget which of the other one is. You won't get the Bukkake Choke Slams. You only get them on the desktop, and I believe it's either the Roku or the TV. I don't remember. So just kind of an FYI. Want to make sure that that was out there for people to know, because again, if you want to ask Lily questions toward the end of the stream, absolutely feel free to do that. If you want to ask me questions, feel free to do that as well. With that, I appreciate you guys bearing with me here. I'm still new to streaming, so there's a lot of things I'm still trying to figure it out. It's definitely a work in progress. And I'll finally, for those people that are interested in the Grizzly MGTOW full stream, I'm in the process of doing post-production. I fucked up on some of the sound and the technical issues there. I'm hoping that with this stream that a lot of those things are fixed. Again, I'm learning as I go. So there you go. And Grizzly, don't fuck with my my Moobot waifu. I see you talking shit to it. So there you go. Oh, and thank you, Nemo. So yeah, no Roku, yes on Twitch TV. So Twitch TV, you get your Bukkake choke slams, but on Roku, you do not. Thank you, Nemo, for clarifying that. I appreciate it. All right, so back with that, we're going to jump back to the video.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So what's interesting is that you actually said you had some disagreements with MGTOW. And and you kind of talked about in the video, you talked about like kind of like the red pill rage. Tell me about the video, kind of what your thought process is on the video, and if that is still your view now.
Is this the first video or the second video?
The first video, the one where you talked about how you disagree with the fact that their comments have been offensive.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it does not set a good standard for like if any woman ever came across any of this and all she saw was this kind of stupidity, it would be like, well, they're all terrible people, let's crucify them. It does no justice to your cause at all. It makes women extremely unsympathetic.
Okay. The reason I wanted you to bring that up, and I think that it's important, is because, I really don't know of any nice way to say this, but at the end of the day, MGTOW really don't give a fuck what women think. The point is, we're walking away. And so there is no cause. Does that make sense? Like we're not activists, and this isn't meant to be. If it turns into a movement, it would be a movement that's organic in nature, as opposed to like a political movement or like some kind of top-down AstroTurf movement. Does that make sense?
I get you, but the thing is, you have reasons, like you have complaints in this, and regardless of whether it is a political movement or not, it's going to have political effect. So in saying that like you're not MRAs, you say a lot of the same points that MRAs do. If anything, you're probably a pretty good bargaining chip for MRAs.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that. TFM and I were on a stream, and I passively support the MRA movement just like TFM does. And if they're able to somewhere down the line, they do their little Return of the Jedi, Episode 6, Star Wars, holy shit, we bring it back from the brink of destruction and save the galaxy, I'm happily able to support, or willing to support them. But I don't see that happening. And, I think that when it comes to the MRAs could be like, look, bitches, why don't you sit down and let's talk at the negotiation table? Because if you don't, we have this thing called MGTOW, and then your bitches aren't going to have anybody to talk to at all. So, I think that we're a great bargaining chip. And I think TFM really, like I said, this was probably 2-3 months ago, I think we talked about it. But I mean, a lot of people would agree with you there. At least the people that are looking at it from like, on a large scale.
Yeah. And I mean, like women, we like men. We like their company. We enjoy having them around. So as soon as men start kind of leaving and I guess in a way giving women no attention, that's going to make a lot of women mad simply for the fact that we don't want to necessarily live in a world where men aren't part of our lives.
Oh, I completely agree. So you guys just need to go get a bunch of knives and start stabbing feminists.
Well, I'm working.
Take them out of the gene pool, and it'll be okay.
eBay keeps confiscating the knives I buy.
Of course they do. Well, that's probably because you probably have mental health issues, and it's documented somewhere. So I would get that. Definitely. Right. But the thing that's interesting though is that it has. I agree with you. It has political ramifications, but I think that there are going to be large scale consequences to this. But and again, to kind of jump back, and I know we kind of tangented off the beaten path a little bit. One of the other things you said in your video that kind of surprised me is that you said that you perceived at that point when you made the video that you believe MGTOW lacked gumption and that they acted like they're just a bunch of complainers. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, yeah.
Hold on, give me just a second. Juan the MGTOW, you need to save your questions toward the end, because I'm probably not going to see that because people are going to be chatting through and your question is going to go off into the shitter. So please, if you have questions, save them till the Q&A section. because I don't want to miss your questions, and I'm definitely not going to ask your question now. No disrespect to you. So just kind of an FYI for those people that have shown up late. Sorry about that, Lily. Go ahead.
That's okay. What I mean by like they just complain and have no gumption is that they don't offer any solutions. I guess technically MGTOW is a solution, but let's face it, it's not a good long-term solution, if that makes sense. Pulling society apart won't help anything long-term. It'll just create a dystopian future, and no one wants to live in some bad movie directed by some weirdo.
All right. Well, fair enough. But let me ask you this. I mean, obviously, and I agree with you. I think that if you look at it from a long-term societal standpoint, I don't believe that MGTOW helps society in general. However, as a long-term solution for the individual, and even the long-term solution for groups of men, MGTOW it's the best solution, because it takes you away from the potential of, or it reduces the risk of a false rape accusation, or a false domestic violence accusation, or the potential to be divorce raped, or the potential to be sexually harassed at work, or targeted at work. MGTOW it's very much, you're welcome, Juan. It's very much that, ghosting in plain sight and hiding in plain sight. And, it's interesting because you bring up this idea of no viable options. And honestly, when you take a woman's drama out of your life, and you have to admit, I mean, women can be pretty dramatic, right?
Oh, definitely.
Right. So you take that drama out of your life, what are you left with? You're left with peace. You're left with peace and quiet. You're left with serenity. And the other thing I noticed too is that you said that you're frustrated that guys who are MGTOW won't teach women to be different. Is that a fair statement to make? In other words, am I reiterating what you said correctly?
Kind of. This is an interesting one actually, because at the time what I meant is people need to be able to speak out and speak to women, like tell them where they're going wrong, because let's be honest, a woman is just going to blatantly ignore something unless it's directly blocking her path. But in the same time, I also realized later that you can't teach someone that doesn't want to learn. You can't make someone that doesn't want to listen. And I guess that's probably where I was wrong in saying that.
Well, I mean, you can if your pimp hand is strong.
Oh yeah, well.
I mean, some people do learn. Some people need stick method, right? Wouldn't you agree?
I declined to answer.
You declined to answer. I'm right though, right?
Probably. Some people they need that extra little bit of help.
Right. It's motivation. So you have to keep your pimp hand strong. You absolutely do. But, the thing that I thought was amusing about this whole thing is that, as far as men being unwilling to teach women to be different, doesn't that sound a little bit misogynistic and patriarchal on your part?
Oh, I'm definitely a misogynist. Don't you know that? That's why feminists won't talk to me.
Clearly. Well, common sense, is misogyny, so are facts.
Oh, yeah.
So, the other thing you said, too, is you were saying that in your video, you said that women won't change unless it's in their interest. But my concern is that it's not in a woman's interest to give up privileges that they receive. You can't compete with free, right?
No, it would be like, as I said before, women like men, we would want, if it gets to the point where it's either lose these people or give up something, a majority are going to be willing to give up something to keep something of better value.
I would agree with that. That's why women monkey branch. That's why they cheat on their husbands so that they can go fuck the Chad and try to, destroy their family.
Well,
it's unrestrained hypergamy.
I was actually going to say that men have value beyond financial, but if you want to go to hypergamy, we can jump right there.
We can come back to it because I'm sure I know you have some comments to make about that, and that's fine. But I mean, yeah, even more than financial. But I mean, if you look at like the divorce rate, for example, and I'm taking this from an American perspective, and I know that you're in Australia. Now, I've spoken with people. I have people I talk to in the MRA movement in Australia, like anti-feminists and things like that, and I do kind of follow that news a little bit. So I think I can kind of, in a general sense, I think I can kind of speak to this as well. when guys have problems, when guys have obstacles in their life, maybe they get injured or they lose a job or something else comes up like that, a woman is more likely to abandon him than she is to stay through it. So, you know, that whole marriage vow of better or worse, for women, it's for better or get the fuck out.
I think that would depend. Like, yes, some women are exactly like that. They will just move on as soon as something doesn't suit them. But I think also that when people go through great life changes, for example, an injury, people change a little bit as well. So someone could potentially take out their own misery on their spouse, and that would inevitably lead to marriage destruction.
Okay. Well, but the problem is that we've had such a huge divorce revolution that, you know, the majority of women today, well, I wouldn't say majority, but I would say a really huge portion of women today are divorced. I mean, in the United States, the marriage rate used to be 72% prior to feminism. Today, it's 50%. That's a 33% drop just in marriage completely. And that's overall marriage numbers. That's not actually the marriage rate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I found interesting statistics that said the divorce rate was dropping, though. So that's interesting.
Well, sure, the divorce rate actually is dropping overall, not percentage-wise, but in numbers. But the amount of marriage is falling through the floor as well. In fact, in every country that's adopted feminism, marriage has dropped right into the gutter, and so is the birth rate.
Not quite exactly what the statistics I found said, but I'll believe you. Continue.
Fair enough. So, you know, the challenge here, though, is that as far as MGTOW is concerned, you say that, you know, MGTOW don't really have any viable options. But the reality is, at least from a MGTOW lens, is that MGTOW are trying to survive. They're trying to survive under gynocentric occupation. And, you know, the issue today is that feminists are now actually openly witch hunting men. You look at the Hollywood Weinstein, you know, the Hollywood bitch trials where, you know, the false allegations are everywhere. And it's an epidemic, and women are falsely accusing successful men everywhere. Politicians, you know, newspaper reporters, actors, everybody, they're accusing them of all these accusations. But what I found was interesting is that prior to feminism, and I'm saying prior to second wave feminism, in 1960, the amount of rape was 9% per thousand. Or sorry, not 9 per thousand. But after the rise of second wave feminism, it went to like 48.
Well, so when you increase promiscuity, you increase the risks. Plus, people have regrets, and we all know how easy it is for a woman to accuse a man of something, even if it was consensual initially.
Right. Well, yeah, regret rape is a thing, especially if the woman is cheating on her significant other, which is one of the main reasons that women will falsely accuse a man of rape. It's one of the top three, actually. You know, but here's the thing. What's even crazy about that, though, is that even with the amount of accusations that are coming around, the accusations that actually have some evidence behind them, where they, like Al Franken, for example, in almost every case, using the Al Franken example, it's male feminists who are trying to cash in on the sex liberation culture created by feminists.
Yeah, of course they have. They want more pussy too.
yeah, absolutely. But what's interesting, though, is that these women were protecting these men. These feminists were protecting these men who were doing this, and now they're turning on them. So when a man's utility goes away, it's like these feminists turn on them. Isn't that hypocritical?
That's definitely hypocritical. They just have no excuses for feminists. I'm sorry.
Right. You know, and again, I mean, I'm talking about the reasons guys go MGTOW. I don't think it's necessarily, you know, a selfish thing per se. It's more like self-preservation. Because, you know, even there's countries now where a man can't even get a paternity test if he's concerned the kid isn't his. In the United States, paternity fraud is 30%. In the UK, it's closer to 50%. You know, and so if you're being barred by the law to say, you know, I want to make sure the kid's mine, you know, especially like, you know, if you may think your wife is pure as the driven snow, and, you know, you're both blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, and, you know, your kid comes out Mexican. Maybe she cheated, you know? I mean, maybe it's in the realm of possibility that she was fucking somebody else and that's his kid, right?
Oh, I don't know. You know, genetics, man. They definitely lie every time.
I'm sure they do. Sure they do. you know. But if your kid comes out as an attack helicopter, there you go. But I'm just saying that, you know, so there's a law bars them. Then, you know, when men are abused, when men are harassed, nobody gives a shit. Like in Kyrgyzstan, which is what I call India, you know, if a man will raise his voice to a woman, all these cucks will go around and they'll kick the shit out of him. And we're seeing this in other places as well. Oh, don't raise your voice to a woman or whatever. That's clear misandry.
Yeah, that's just terrible kind of stuff, sir.
Yeah, and so I'm just saying that, you know, and the other example is drunk rape. If you go out to the bar and you have a few drinks and you bring a chick home and you're both drunk, you've raped her, but she's not raped you. Again, it's a double standard. And to get on top of that whole drunk rape thing, you know, in the UK, there was an article probably about 6 years ago, and I know I read it on MGTOW.com. Keymaster posted it, and there's been a couple other, it's appeared elsewhere. I'm still looking for it. I think I actually, I may have put it in my book. I don't remember. But in the UK, they did a study at a hospital where all these women had shown up at this hospital, and they had said that they had been given roofies or date rape drugs. And after all the blood tests came back, they just found out that none of these women had been roofied, but every one of them was a drug whore.
Well, yeah. I'm not surprised by that at all.
Right. So, you know, when it comes to MGTOW, when it comes to solutions, these are actually the solutions that men have put in place to protect themselves. And now, are they solutions that improve society? No, but they do improve men's way of life.
I guess, but only short term.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from the societal standpoint, that short term is the rest of that man's life. But honestly, I mean, the reality is that, you know, MRAs have no real major successes to their name, and unless women start turning on feminism, there's going to have to be a collapse before things change. And that's the ugly reality, at least from my perception and in conversations that I've had with TFM, that's his viewpoint. Because it's not just the women who are promoting the gynocentrism, it's the nice guys and the cucks that are trying to white knight for them as well. And they hold just as much responsibility. Say again?
They think it'll get them laid. Right.
And, you know, and sometimes it might, but, you know, again, they're going to get divorce raped eventually too.
Probably.
So, did you have any other comments that you wanted to make about that video, or did you have any, let me ask you this. Has your perception about MGTOW changed since you made that video? Was there anything that you were wrong about, or anything that's been reinforced as a result of that video?
I guess part of when I said that they just complain a lot, I've also realized since making that maybe it's a good thing that men can complain to each other. Like, It gives them a place to vent. And I kind of think that's a good thing. At the same time, I think my other views of MGTOW have probably changed for the worse.
Okay. All right. And how so?
Well, when I came into it, I was actually, like, completely on board. I was ready to say everything that any MGTOW would ever want to hear from a woman. And then I got feedback, and I stopped and I thought for a second. I was like, you know what? I don't believe everything that these men are telling me anymore. Mostly the red pill rages kind of they changed my view. I went from being sympathetic in some ways to kind of almost being mad.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's probably because somebody online called you a cunt or something.
Exactly. I have delicate, fragile feelings.
Right. No, and you have to understand that I respect that. I totally respect you actually saying that. And not everybody knows how to handle the mentally disabled. So I get it. I get it.
Best to handle with kid gloves.
Right. So I totally get it, you know, and, you know, obviously you're female, so there's going to be some mental disability there. I get it.
It's just natural. I can't help it.
Right. I know. It's your genetics. I know. This is why men are superior to women. Your estrogen just gets in your way of logic, reason, and thought. I get it. So I don't hate you for it. I want to make sure you understand. I don't hate you for it.
Well, thank you then.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to your November 10th video.
Okay.
So in your video on November 10th, this is the why women hate MGTOW, and I think we can kind of. You touched on this already when we were talking in your comments about the last video. So let's touch on it now as well. You say it's not about hating women, but the comments are triggering to women.
Oh, they are definitely triggering to women. Any woman with a thin skin, which most tend to have, they would instantly class the entire group as misogynistic bastards and just move on.
Right. Now, do you understand that men communicate differently than women?
Yeah, I do. That's probably part of... I think a lot of people forget that men and women are different.
Right. Yeah, it's that whole penis vagina thing, and testosterone and estrogen and XX and XY. Subtle yet significant differences.
Oh wait, what?
Exactly.
I think I got it wrong.
Right. I get it. I get it. As a trap, I understand.
Well, it's all you can do.
Right. Right. But I think that the thing is like when men communicate with each other, they'll talk shit. They will talk mad shit. They'll be like, hey, dickhead, hey, asshole, how you doing, whatever. And then when they leave, they're like, oh, that guy's cool. But women will be like, oh, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you're great. And then the women will leave and they'll talk to their friends and be like, wow, she's a cow and she's two-faced and she's a cunt.
Yeah, that's quite accurate. I'm impressed.
I've actually been out after dark with a woman or two in my time, believe it or not. So, I know that I know that might throw you off a little bit. A lot of people think that MGTOW are just, neck-bearded basement dwellers. But, some of us socialize occasionally.
Are you sure you're not a woman? That could be a possibility we haven't explored yet.
I've been in a woman or two, but I'm definitely not a woman. So,
okay.
Okay. Obviously the comments are triggering to a woman. But men don't give a shit because we just don't care that way. We'll communicate, we'll harass one another, and that's just the way we communicate in general. And this isn't just MGTOW, this is men in general. So you say that basically women switch off and get angry at red pill rage statements. But the thing, I said, men don't care. Men are fucking with you because they know, if you get angry about something, men are going to fuck with you more. Because you're angry.
Funny.
Because it's funny. It's absolutely funny. It's like, holy shit. Yeah. The short bus made all the stops. Look at how offended she got. Let's do it some more. Yeah. You got to poke the bear.
But even then, there's more to it than that. Once you get past that initial ick, there's more. There is basically male supremacists in this. There are people that are saying women are inferior. There are people saying that women are absolutely useless. And I get that that's not all of them, but these are the people that are going to give you bad representation.
But here's the thing, though. Women aren't equal to men. That's why even in Australia, your Australian Defence Force, I posted a picture. It was yesterday, I think it was. The Australian Defence Force actually posted in a little pamphlet of what is required to get to join the Defence Force. And women had lower standards than men. And then there's a little thing there that says if you're a woman and you want to go in the Australian Defence Force and you can't meet the physical standard because you're a woman, you can actually go to this fitness program that we'll sponsor, that we'll pay for, that we'll provide you government welfare for, so that you could meet your lowered standard. Because women can't even meet the standard when they lower it for women. And
that's actually prominent here.
It's huge. And it's not just in Australia, it's everywhere in the United States. You see firefighters that are failing the firefighter test. And they're like, oh, well, it's a woman, so we got to push her through because of affirmative action. That shit's going to get people killed. And in Sweden is controlled by a feminist government. There's a viral video of these 3 Swedish cops trying to take out this small, and the guy is tiny. He's an immigrant, and he was a criminal. And he was Somalian or something. He kicked the shit out of all 3 of these women, and they had weapons. They had a nightstick, and they just ran away. They're like, yeah, fuck that, I'm out of here. And it was all caught on film. Women can't, when it comes to physicality, women are not equal to men. And when it comes to brain function, women aren't equal to men. There have been studies that have been shown, peer-reviewed studies that are completely legitimate, that show that on an IQ-type bar graph, men are both the geniuses and they are the booger-eating morons. And women generally sit in the center of that graph, so they're kind of average. So when it comes to that, women, there's no way that women and men are equal. So, just with those 2 examples alone, the reality is that men and women are not equal, and there's no way they ever could be. In fact, if you go to the gym, I don't know if you work out or what, but, if you go to the gym and you work out, on some days you are stronger than you are on other days. So,
Yeah.
what you might be able to lift, like say if you're, lifting weights, you're bench pressing, you might be able to put up 250 today, but then maybe tomorrow you can only put up 235 just because you don't feel better. I mean, we're not even, on different days, we're not even equal to what we were before. And that's true for men and women.
Yeah. So I can agree with you on the physicality side of things. And I guess, yes, male and female brains are different, but they're also wired for different things. For example, I could multitask a million times better than majority of men, but men have that focus, that driven focus for specific tasks.
Right, but you can't focus in times of stress.
Well, no, but we can multitask damn well.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that you can women are better multitaskers than men, and I will concede that point. But during times of stress, women can't multitask. During times of stress or during times of adversity, women shut down. It's that fight or flight mechanism. Testosterone in a male's body is going to cause that man to fight and solve the problem. Whereas with women, a woman will run or she'll deflect or she'll basically try to avoid it. And I'm speaking in generality here. I'm not speaking like every woman, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But like logically, say if it was a stressful situation, a man could fight and could fix that situation. A woman couldn't. She's not strong enough necessarily to do that. So it's natural instinct for us to flee, while it's natural instinct for men to fight. If that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But I'm just saying that this whole equality thing, on its best day, is bullshit.
Yeah, in some ways.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's absolute bullshit. I mean, and you even look at it's even kind of funny too, because feminism has basically been running society for almost half a century now, since the mid '60s. We're like I said, we're over 50 years into second wave feminism, third wave feminism, and what some people might consider fourth wave feminism. Women can do whatever the fuck they want now. There are no barriers for achievement other than what a woman is willing to invest in anything that she does. But women still gravitate to psychology and sociology and the soft sciences and bullshit and service industries and things that don't have standards, or at least empirical standards. Whereas the men are still, gravitating to STEM and, all these other different things. And then women are like, oh, well, because women choose not to, somehow women are oppressed. That's not our fault. It's not our turn to babysit.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think if we have the opportunities, like we can do all these things. If we're choosing not to do them, we shouldn't be complaining about it. And we shouldn't be expecting people to lower the standards because we can't keep up with it.
Right. And I would agree with you there. I think that women who can't meet the male standard for law enforcement or the police department or firefighters or EMTs, they shouldn't be there.
No, they'll just get hurt anyway.
Right. Well, and, if you guys got invaded, the Australian Defence Force, if you guys got invaded, all the men will die and all the women will drop to their knees and suck the invader's dick. They're just going to give up.
Well, it'll keep them distracted for a while now, won't it?
I'm sorry?
It'll keep them distracted until the wildlife can get them.
Right. That I guess you could say that is a long-term strategy. I could say that. Yeah, giving in. So, okay. So as we're going to jump back to the video here. All right. So you said that So one of the things that you were saying is that you said that women switch off when they get angry at red pill rage comments. We kind of touched on this a little bit there, but I mean, isn't it fair to say that the reason why the gynocentrism and hypergamy has gotten so out of control is because feminists created the problem and not men?
Yeah, I would definitely say that feminists created this issue.
Yeah, so shouldn't these women figure out on their own what the fucking problem is? I mean, that's really what MGTOW, if you look at MGTOW from a meta perspective, and I don't think that this is like, MGTOW's not a movement, it's every man for himself in some ways. But if you look at it, MGTOW as a movement, like from a meta perspective, once women realize that men are leaving, don't you think that they would be like, holy shit, we need to change these laws and we need to change and get these feminist court judges out of the court and stop them from fucking men?
Yeah, but there's a definite level of ignorance there. Like they don't care at this point. And I mean, things are it only takes one person to break something, but sometimes it takes two to fix it, if that makes sense.
Well, sure. I mean, I always say that, like when I talk about my ex-wife, I use the cancer analogy. Nobody asks for cancer back. Nobody says, holy shit, I wish I had cancer back in my life. You can't use cancer to fix cancer.
You can fight fire with fire.
Sure you can. Sure you can. And, and you can light feminists on fire. I think that's, it's not a big deal.
Well, yeah, but they tend to get mad at that as well.
Well, that's that whole... Right. But here's the thing. Once they get to a certain temperature, they quit bitching.
Well, yes. Technically, yes.
So, I'm just saying, you just got to make them hot enough. There you go. See, look, I'm a problem solver. Just
burn them all, like witches at the stake.
There you go. I'm going to actually cut that snippet out. I'm going to make that its own thing. Okay. All right.
All right, what was your next point?
All right, so the next point is that you were saying that basically when women get upset, that they start targeting these channels for hate speech.
Yeah.
But my concern is this. Most of these statements that women target as hate speech, they're not the red pill rage statements. They're not the red pill rage statements that are being targeted. Most of the people that are getting targeted for hate speech are not like, the assholes. Like, for instance, Angry MGTOW is pretty fucking offensive, but his channel's still up and everybody's starting to, it's because they don't take him as a serious threat. But if you look at like somebody like Sargon of Akkad or some of the more credible MGTOW content creators like MGTOW is Freedom, even though I may not agree with their delivery all the time, they're actually sharing content with people that is important. And those are the channels that are being targeted for hate speech. And it's not because they're saying anything misogynistic or offensive. It's because they say things that debunk, feminism's dishonest and hypocritical man-hating narrative, like the patriarchy, rape culture, the wage gap, and other major feminist lies. And I think that that's one of the things that maybe, I think you get it at some point, and I know from our conversations it sounds like you get it at least at some point, but I noticed that like when you made this video, it was very clear that you didn't. Is that a fair assessment to make?
I guess I was probably still in the stages of understanding everything, so in some ways it may or may not have been just to see the reactions.
Okay, so you were trying to do it for the lulz. You were trying to do your little, like, purple-haired trolling. I get it.
Sometimes I'm a terrible human being.
Very few women would admit that, so, congratulations.
Yay, special snowflake!
Right. All right, so the other thing you said is that, feminists think that they don't need a man, right? I mean, like, we live in a society where the genders don't need each other. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, in their eyes, they don't need a man for anything at all, ever. If they have a pipe that needs fixing, they'll just call over their butch lesbian friend and she'll fix it for them. If they want kids, they can just go to a sperm bank and get a couple of samples.
Okay. But, here's the problem, though. Even if they're butch lesbians, they buy dildos. They still need dick. They buy dildos.
Yes, they still have a hole that needs filling.
Right. They're still down for the bukkake chokeslam. It's just that, instead of the guy giving it to them, they use a dildo. So,
well, yes, they do.
Plus, on top of that, they still need a man's money and his resources. And the reality is that the butch lesbian will probably bitch about coming over and fixing the shit under his sink, and she'll have to call a guy to do it, a male plumber, which is primarily a predominated male field.
See, I would have to disagree with you there, because just because it's a butch lesbian doesn't mean she's not good at her job. Likewise, it doesn't mean that she's using any men's resources. There's no way to prove that specifically.
Right. So I just monitored the chat real quick, and JD says that she provided evidence to TFM that most people who buy dildos are men. JD, if you actually want to send me that supposed evidence that you have, email it to me. You've got my email through my YouTube, and I'll look at it. And then, either we can talk about it or do a response. But if you've got some legit evidence, that's fine. But if it's like the shit that you normally propose, I'm probably going to tear you apart for it. So, no disrespect. All right, so going back to the whole on your second video, you were also saying that you think that some MGTOW are gleeful about the collapse?
Oh my god, they are. They are. Okay, like, that one is kind of like a complex topic, because they do sit there and they are like gleefully anticipating the collapse of society, and the thought that either women would have to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen again, or they would have to be prostitutes. And that's in itself a threat. Like, you will be traditional or you will be a whore. That is so annoying to hear.
Well, you could be a traditional whore. I mean, men are problem solvers. Men are problem solvers. That's all I'm saying. But honestly, I've talked to a lot of people, and so, I'm a part of a MGTOW Discord group. I interact people with the comments on the TFM show and the TFM 420 show, and I talk to people in general on Twitter and elsewhere. I don't know of anybody who actually wants the collapse, but I think that a lot of people, it's like the MGTOW that are not the knuckle draggers, and there are some out there. There's like TFLers that they rebranded themselves as MGTOW because they can't get laid, and they're like, oh my god, if the collapse happens, I'll finally get my dick wet.
Yes, that is.
But those
mostly
people
where I see those comments.
Right, but most of those people are not like, and I don't want to say they're not true MGTOW, but they're TFLers who rebranded as MGTOW. Most actual, and I don't want to say legitimate MGTOW, but most people that follow the MGTOW philosophy, they understand that they can go out and get laid, they can go out and whatever, and interact with women successfully. They don't want to, and they don't want the world to collapse, but they don't see another solution. There is no solution. And men have thought about this. And the solutions that men have tried to put in place to solve some of the gynocentric disparities in society, they've all been shot down by feminists, because feminists have so many cucks behind them and so much corporate and government welfare behind them that men don't have a leg to stand on. So MGTOW has become the solution. And, they're looking at the examples of places like Sweden, for example. Sweden's a feminist shit show. Or they look at the socialist shit show of Venezuela, or some of these other ones where, they're just like, well, fuck it. If it's going to collapse, we're just going to go ahead and wait for it.
Yeah. But I think in that is actually ironically where you need women. Like, the only people that feminists are afraid of are other women. That's why they ignore the ones that don't agree with them, is because they're afraid of them. So if you get those, go on.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. Feminists will actually attack women just as much as they'll attack men. Like, if you look at Ann Coulter is a prominent conservative. Feminists attack her all the time. Or Betsy DeVos, the President Trump's education secretary. She has been completely harassed by feminists. Completely. And even if you look at I don't know if you know what you know about feminism, but are you familiar with the differences between choice feminism and intersectional feminism?
No, explain it to me.
Okay, well, both are collectivists, so both of them have some basis in Marxist and communist ideology. But the difference between choice feminism and intersectional feminism, one of the main ones, is that intersectional feminism says that you have to do good for women as a group, whereas choice feminism cares about the woman as an individual. So basically, choice feminism supports a woman's agency more than intersectional feminism does. So the issue that you have is that you have intersectional feminists that are targeting choice feminists. Like, who's the woman that did the Lean In book? She's I think she's Facebook's CFO or COO or something like that. But you know what I'm talking about? She's
yeah, I get
she's
you.
Some brown hair. Yeah, she's a super powerful brown haired lady. But she's a feminist, and she wrote this book called Lean In and talks about how women in the professional field. There are intersectional feminists that are attacking her. I've seen articles recently going, well, she's successful, but the rest of the feminists aren't. And Sheryl Sandberg, thank you, Dr. Proctor. So that's an issue. And then Kova brings up a good point. Do you know who Erin Pizzey is?
No, I don't.
So Erin Pizzey was a feminist. She was an early second wave feminist in the UK. And when feminists started lying about their hypocrisy, she started calling them out. And she was married, and they were saying, oh, well, men are evil and men are horrible people. What ended up happening is that they were threatening her. They killed her dog. They threatened to bomb her. They threatened to murder her. She had to actually leave the UK because they were going to kill her. Like, the police were involved. It was a horrible, horrible time. And they did everything in their power to silence her.
Yeah, but when it gets to that stage, if there's enough women that are against feminism and don't want to see it around anymore, there's nothing these feminists are going to be able to do. Like, their extreme views have already pushed a lot of women into basically discrediting them.
I think at some level, I think that you're right. When it comes to the societal level, sure, and the social aspect, but the problem that you have is that the laws are getting worse all the time. So even if, like, opposition to feminism online is strong and it's very fervent, the reality is that in the legislatures and in the places where the laws are made and where justice is supposedly served, feminism reigns supreme. Almost every court in the Western world is saturated with feminists, from the lowliest employee all the way up to the judges. And, you know, they've been indoctrinated in these whole patriarchal systems where, you know, women are the supposed victim and men are the supposed oppressor. And when I say patriarchal system, I'm not actually talking about the true definition of patriarchy. I'm actually talking about the feminist redefinition of patriarchy. Because the reality is, and I think you would agree with me on this, the reality is that nowhere in the history of the Western world has there ever been a civilization, a patriarchal civilization, that was created for the express purpose of oppressing women.
Yeah, that is a point we agree on in that regard.
You know, so now here's the other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on. I had some other things I wanted to touch on, but we kind of hit those earlier. You said in your second video that you don't believe society will crumble. Why is that?
I don't believe it will crumble because of MGTOW. I have no doubt that society is hanging on by a thread, but I just don't think MGTOW will do it. Like, if men stop working, women will do what we did during the wars and start working.
Right, but the value systems were different back then. If you look at World War II, before the rise of feminism, women actually gave a shit about their men. They actually realized that they were invested in their men. And it was their way of life that was threatened. It wasn't that, you know, societal. I mean, I could see where you could say, you know, if society's going to collapse, women will try to step up and fix it. But I just don't see it happening because women don't function as well under stress.
I'm sorry, but they would have to learn, and some women do still care about their men greatly.
I would agree with that. And that's why the pimp hand exists. You know, you have to be able to teach these women how to, like, you know, step it up. I totally get that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Every time, just send them there. They'll get it.
Right. You know, and just to kind of look at this, you know, because when you were talking about the collapse, so here's the thing. Let me give you some stats.
Yep.
In the United States, almost 100 million Americans are currently out of work. Homelessness is at epidemic levels. I mean, in every major city, there's homelessness right now. And since January 1st, 2010, 61 U.S. cities have filed bankruptcy. In other words, they don't have the money to pay their bills. California, the entire state, now has a hepatitis epidemic. And they've decriminalized HIV, which is going to basically increase the spread. And I bring this up a lot. The state of Illinois is like close to $15 billion in debt and no way to dig itself out. And then, you know, of course, we can talk about the EU and the artificially created migrant crisis that's there.
Yeah. Everyone knows that those places are terrible, though.
Well, they're terrible now. I mean, I wanted to go to the UK, but not anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't go there right now. Not a good time for it.
Right. So, you know, so that's kind of, you know, the issue that I have. And the other thing is, you were saying that, you know, as far as like the tax base, you're saying that if men work less, if men work less, women will work more. I honestly don't think they will. Women don't make those kind of life choices. They want that quote. Well, they'd have to, but would they? I mean, do you really think they would? And why? Based on what you've seen of women so far and how bad women have fucked things up with feminism already, what makes you think that would change?
I think that women would step up because they have that pride thing. Like they've said all this time, oh, we're strong and independent. There's no way that they would back down from that now. They would be like, well, we've said this, so now we have to prove it. Otherwise, we look like extra sissies. And so I think a lot of them would either step up and hate themselves for it, no doubt about that. But they would step up is the point. I'm sorry, What was the second question?
Oh no, that was fine. I was concerned because you were saying that I don't think they're going to step up. I think the welfare state is in terminal stage 4 cancer everywhere where the welfare state's been implemented, and I think that there's going to be a collapse regardless of what women want. And then after that collapse, I think there's going to be a reset. And you can see this cycle. TFM talks about this cycle where you've got, you know, hard patriarchy, soft patriarchy, feminism, collapse, hard patriarchy, soft patriarchy, feminism, collapse. And until there's some kind of way to break that cycle, it will continue.
And the wheel goes round, as they say.
It does, but, you know, again, if transhumanism happens and the sex bot revolution comes up and artificial womb shows up, I think that's going to change things a lot, because then women are going to realize that, you know, their $4 pussies are not worth the $100,000 they're trying to get to court to pay them for it.
Like, sex bots, they're a thing, and I don't doubt that a lot of men will go for them, but the artificial womb is so impractical.
Explain your position on impracticality.
Have you seen it? It's like a plastic bag with a sheep fetus.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it's impractical now, but I mean, they're making strides. I would agree with you that that the technology is not there, but they're pushing it.
So say it gets to that stage where it's like a brand new, squeaky, shiny, excellent incubator for human fetuses, and then you've got the fetus that has come out of that. What are you going to feed that fetus?
Formula.
Have you seen the studies? Comparing the difference between formula-fed and breastfed babies?
Yes, I have. In fact, I know the difference personally because my first 2 children were formula-fed and my second 2 children were breastfed.
Yeah, and you can see the difference in, like, they have so many problems. They have higher infection rates, higher mortality. They end up with all sorts of problems from that.
Right, but the problem with a lot of those studies, though, is that a lot of the moms who are feeding these women formula are not nurturing the children the way those children need to be nurtured. That's the issue.
Yeah, but nurture doesn't give you an immune system.
I think it does. I mean, look, I agree with you that the breastfeeding is better than bottle feeding when it comes to immune system and those types of things. But the challenge that I see is that there are a lot of people that are bottle fed that grow up just fine. It's just that you have to make sure that they're in an environment that basically fosters their development. And I can tell you right now, at least from an American perspective, single moms don't do that. Single moms are the #1 abuser of children, according to the CDC. And while fathers are like the #2 abuser, it's the percentages, they're like a distant second. And then the #3 abuser behind single fathers is mom and dad together. And then the #4 right behind that is mom's new boyfriend. So if you look at the single mother epidemic combined with the fact that mom's new boyfriend is there, that group is the largest group of child abusers, at least in the United States.
Yeah, but I'm not saying anything about that. Like, I believe you on those. But the point is, if you're having a child that's raised in basically a sterile environment, because they don't just get nutrients during gestation, they also get doses of immunity then. So you're going to have fetuses that come out and they have had no immunity whatsoever during gestation, and then they're not going to get the immunity boosting that they need during breastfeeding. We are going to see so many horrible new diseases, and people are going to be able to be wiped out like in seconds. If any, they could catch a cold and die, basically.
I don't think that babies are going to be that fragile. I totally understand what you're talking about, but I just don't think. I mean, from the studies that I've seen, and again, you know, I raised 2 children who weren't breastfed, and that didn't happen to them. And the majority of children who are breastfed, it doesn't happen to. I mean, now I will say this. I mean, there was a case in the 50s in Africa where Nestle decided to sell sweetened condensed milk as baby formula. They were killing kids wholesale doing it. And they actually had these saleswomen who were dressed up as, they called them Nestle nurses, who were lying to these African people saying you shouldn't breastfeed, you should give them the sweetened condensed milk instead. And these kids were just dying in droves from malnutrition. So obviously, you know, don't give your kids sweetened condensed milk. And I mean, you know, but this is, you know, it's a question of opposable thumbs at that point. If you're, you know, a dirt eating, booger eating moron, maybe you shouldn't have kids. So, you know, it's a self-correcting problem.
Well, yes, that's also true.
So that's all I'm saying. All right. So I didn't really take a lot of notes on your third video, but I want to kind of touch base on your video. Now, based on the stuff that we've talked about already, before we jump into your third video, is there anything that you want to kind of touch base on, or anything that you want to address with me, just based on the conversation so far?
Well, I was wondering. I mean, MGTOW, no man is around without some sort of woman in their life, whether it be their mother, sister, daughter, whatever it is. So say MGTOW gets extremely prolific and it takes over the entire world and no man ever wants to be with a woman at all. What do you expect women to do then?
Honestly, I don't think MGTOW is going to take off at that level. I think that there will be a societal collapse first. I think that as MGTOW starts to groundswell, and this is something TFM and I have talked about, I think that as MGTOW starts to groundswell, I think that's when society will collapse. And the reason I believe that is because there are a lot of men out there who are fake alphas, or they're, successful, they go to the gym, they look good, they've got a lot of money, they're leaders of industry, but when it comes to women, they're fucking simps. They are the epitome of cuck lives matter, and they just cuck for these women. And so those men who are so thirsty, they are not going to go. They're not going to take the red pill. They're not going to go MGTOW. A lot of people are saying they're red pill because of the Cassie J movie and because it's like the socially acceptable thing to say. But the reality is that they're not. They're simps. They think that oh, I go shoot guns, or I go to the gym and I lift weights, or I do CrossFit, or I make $300,000 a year. And then when it comes to, the first woman walks into their life and they're like, oh, how can I be of service to you, my lady? Because cuck lives matter, and they start being they start being a bunch of fedora tipping simps. So those guys are not going to go MGTOW. Those guys are going to be threatened by MGTOW, and they're probably going to be threatened by me even saying this and calling them out. But the reality is that when a collapse comes, these guys will be the people who enable it, because those are the people that have been cucking for feminism, and they've been pushing this whole envelope to begin with. So they won't become red pill, and they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to get pussy, or I'm going to get laid, or I'm going to do whatever, until a Weinstein-style false rape allegation hits their life, and then they're just going to break and die. Those will be the people who commit suicide, because they've never known the hardship, and they're going to be like, but I was a good feminist. Doesn't matter, bitch. You get the knife first. So, at the end of the day, I think what'll happen is I've thought about this a lot, and this is something that TFM and I have talked about both online and off, and I've talked about it with other MGTOW as well. I don't think MGTOW is for everybody, because a lot of men just don't have the, and again, like you look at TFLers, for example, they don't have what you would refer to as the gumption to stand on their own 2 feet. They would rather have somebody else support them, or they'd rather support the system that has created it and keeps feminism going, rather than actually being part of the actual solution. So, as MGTOW goes, and as MGTOW develops, and as the welfare state gets deprived and spends themselves into bankruptcy, you're going to see a collapse before everybody else does what they need to do to fix it. Now, I will say this, that after that collapse happens, you're going to see some MGTOW, if patriarchy gets reestablished, some MGTOW will go back to patriarchy. I might be one of them if I'm alive. Because I think that at that point, women are no longer a viable threat. I'll have to reassess it, and basically do another cost-benefit analysis at that point. But yeah, until then, I think that it's a problem. Now, I will agree, there's a lot of tradcons that are like, well, MGTOW's bad for communities because it fucks up society and this and that. Well, yeah, it does. But MGTOW's not the problem. MGTOW is the symptom. You want to solve the symptom, you got to solve the problem. And in order to solve the problem, you need to take your dick out of your purse, and you need to take your spine off a layaway, and you need to deal with the gynocentric bullshit and the cucks that are surrounding you. Because it's you cucks and the feminists who created this problem in the first place.
Yeah, of course. Like, they definitely need to step up and realize that there's things that need to change. A lot of them aren't going to if they don't hear. Like, if they never open their eyes and their ears to listen and see, it's never going to change.
Right. I definitely agree with that. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we talked about your third gem?
Well, I was going to touch on, I kind of almost did in the last little section, about like family members that are female. I see a lot of MGTOW that just outrightly hate all women in general. But what about like family members? What about just having friendships or working colleague relationships with women? What would you say to that?
So there is a group of MGTOW that are out there that are like that are like avoid women at all costs. Like if a woman walks away, they sprint off and they go hide in a corner somewhere. Or they try to ghost in plain sight, or they pop smoke, and do the Batman escape. Or they do the whole, Jedi mind trick. I'm not the male cuck you're looking for. I think that when it comes to that, I think that there's a group of MGTOW that are out there. But honestly, I think MGTOW has evolved a little bit in that most MGTOW, I know a lot of MGTOW who won't commit, cohabitate, or marry a woman, but they'll still fuck them. They'll still date them. They'll still pursue them. They'll still have social interactions with them. Because we have a sex drive, right? We need to have our dick moisturized. So absolutely. I think that when it comes to that, though, it's being able to navigate those waters in a way to deal with it. And so like in the next week or two, I'm going to be talking about rules for relationships for red pill men and for MGTOW style men. But the point is that I don't think all MGTOW are avoiding women. I think that a lot of them are just communicating with them. And frankly, if you're a MGTOW and you're smart and you're not anonymous, you're not going to admit to being MGTOW in public. That's the first rule of war, according to Sun Tzu, is deception. Oh yeah, fuck MGTOW. Oh yeah, I would talk shit about them to people around me. Absolutely. So, I think that when it comes to the female interaction, I don't think that's an issue. I talked about my reasons for going monk, but there might be a time where I decide not to go monk. Maybe I need my dick moisturized or whatever. And you know what? I'll go out and find some female feminist, assuming I'm still living in Washington, and give her the Bukkake choke slam and try to give her some cervical impact cancer and move on my way. So, men have needs just like women do. So I don't see that as viable for most MGTOW. It's just, it's the dishonesty and it's the trust and it's all the rest of the drama that's associated with it. And I don't know how much of my content you've watched or how much of TFMs you've watched, but you know, obviously when I talk about cost benefit analysis, I've gone into that time and time again. So
yeah. The only thing I will say on this little bit of topic is I feel like if men are just not interested in like relationships, that's not going to be a problem for that many women as long as the men are still decent. Like women hit the wall. They hit the point where they're not interested in relationships either. They just don't care.
I would agree with that.
The young ones that care, but
well, but women have a hard sell by date. I think I read a study recently that said that most of women's eggs dry up by the time they're like 30 or 35. So
yeah, I think after 35 there's risk.
Yeah, it's a huge drop off. So, women have a hard sell by date. So, if they're out, between 15 and 30 years old and they're just, trying to go for the Guinness Book of World Records, riding the cock carousel, men aren't going to want to be around that. They're going to be like, holy shit, you're a pump and dump. Have a nice day.
Yeah. That's fine. It's kind of a quality thing. If those women want to behave that way, they are always going to find men that are willing to behave that way with them.
Right. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is that, and the thing about feminism, and I think that's the thing that feminists don't understand, in life there are natural consequences. I don't give a fuck about your laws. I don't give a fuck about your policies or your hate speech bullshit or any of the rest of it. The reality is there are natural consequences for your actions, Those guys that run around and spend their career putting their fucking heads in crocodile mouths are eventually going to get their head bit off, or they're going to get some animal to kill them. Those women that run around and talk about, and ride the cock carousel and do all that, guess what? There are consequences for that. The more partners a woman has, the less she's able to pair bond with a man. Women don't understand that. They don't realize that because they are so, drunk off of all the orgasms they've received that they just don't appreciate it.
I would actually say that they don't know. Feminism doesn't tell you that part.
No, and it actively suppresses this particular knowledge that used to be commonplace back in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, are you good? Can we move on to the third video, or did you have anything else you wanted to discuss?
Let's go on. I'm done. I'm good.
All right. So I didn't actually take notes on the third video. I kind of talked to you about this morning. So what I'm hoping that you'll do is kind of summarize that video. What your points were, and then we'll just kind of, once you've done that, I'm gonna let you do like a full monologue. Once you're done that, then I'll go ahead and I'll take some notes during that, and I'll try to bring up my concerns and maybe agreements or disagreements at that point. Is that fair?
Okay. Yeah, but it's not a very big topic. I will warn you.
That's okay. That's okay. You know what? Here's the thing. For this debate, size doesn't matter.
Size never matters, babe.
Yeah, that's what they say, but I'll tell you what. When you can yodel in there and the echo goes for 15 minutes, there's a problem.
Okay.
Just saying. All right, so go ahead.
So, just for anyone that hasn't seen my third video, it's literally comparing feminism to MGTOW in every way. And I think I summarized it in like the first 40 seconds of the video. Basically, from what I can see, it's very similar to feminism in that feminism goes on about, the patriarchy. And then you get MGTOW going on about gynocentrism. You get the stereotype from feminism that all men are misogynists and they're rapists and whatever else. And then you get the stereotype from like MGTOW that all women are gold-digging whores. You get women saying they don't need men at all for anything. You get men saying that they don't need women at all for anything. You get them both saying that neither of them are about hating the other side, but you get these little pockets of, I guess, extremists that actively hate on both, whichever side they're against. They hate it. You get mostly, this is the thing that I take the most annoyance with, is that if you're a woman and you're not a feminist, you are instantly like internalized misogyny or something like that. But then you look at MGTOW, and if you're a man that's interested in having relationships with women still, you are instantly classed as like a mangina or a simp or a white knight or whatever it is. And then you get down to the final point of this, where women complain about being sex objects and men complain about being success objects. That's it, really. That's the entire.
All right. Well, I appreciate the summary. I would agree with you that there are a lot of cases where men say very similar things about feminism, or MGTOW say very similar things about feminism that that feminists say about men. I could see where you would draw those similarities. But I think that the piece that you're missing is that, as MGTOW is a philosophy and a lifestyle, feminism is and has always been a political movement for power. So like in the United States, for example, there's a League of Women Voters in every state. The National Organization of Women has international chapters. And these are huge organizations. And I'm just talking about just these two, but there are feminist organizations everywhere. And I actually did some research, and I found that in the United States, as far as nonprofits just with the name women in them, in other words, women-focused nonprofits that have the name women in the title,
yeah,
there were 3,800 of them.
That's a lot.
3,800. And that's just the ones with women in the title. So, but there are no MGTOW nonprofit organizations. They just don't exist because MGTOW's not a political movement. It's not, it's a personal philosophy, that kind of thing. You don't go to the MGTOW church, for example, or the MGTOW club.
I will be going.
And then when you look at super PACs, which are the organizations that fund elections and fund politicians and those kind of things, feminists have, again, just with the name women in them, feminists have over 140 super PACs just in the United States alone with the word woman in them.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fucking insane. Feminism is definitely a political movement, and it definitely controls the laws. Now, they also, at the same time, obviously, they're trying to socially engineer society through, cuck magazines, like Playboy's become cucked out, and, a few other magazines that supposedly were targeting men and co-opting men's spaces, male spaces. But, at the same time, they're talking to women. I mean, like you were saying before, there's a lot of things about the male-female interaction that feminists don't tell women. But the problem is that feminists are controlling the narrative. I mean, our conversation, even, the areas where we disagree, feminists would never condone that. Feminists don't want to debate red pill men. They don't want to debate MGTOW men. And you look at I'm sorry?
They don't want to debate anyone that may slightly disagree with them.
Well, that's because their ideology represents an indefensible hypocrisy.
Yeah.
But, observable reality completely debunks feminism. This idea of patriarchy being an oppressive system is at best, it's retarded. And in my stream, I talked about, what things would look like with my stream with Grizzly. I talked about what things would look like if we really had a true rape culture. If we had a rape culture, you could just go fuck women at random. And if they said anything about it, you give them a pimp hand and you call it a day. And then somebody else will rape them just for opening their mouth. They're like, oh, your mouth is open. We need to put a dick in it. That's what rape culture would literally look like, and Sharia law at some level actually represents some of that. So, and I don't understand why people refuse to look at observable reality. I think that, if a guy spreads his legs on the, on the public transit, all of a sudden that's rape culture. There was a guy who was arrested in October who was staring at a woman in a window of a shop. He was outside on the sidewalk and he was just kind of looking in the shop. He looked at her 2 or 3 times, and he spent 70 days in jail for it. There's a YouTuber named Goodfellow that did an actual video on it. I mean, 70 days in jail for looking at someone.
Well, if only I had known that was the way to get rid of all men. Goodness gracious.
If you're in the UK, it is, at least for now. But I mean, the point is that feminism is criminalizing men everywhere. And so for you to, and again, I could see where a lot of people would be so shallow as to think that MGTOW and feminism are two sides of the same coin. But the reality is that if you look beyond the surface of what's being said, even just a little bit, it is so much different. And I think that you could agree with me, now that you know more about MGTOW, and we've talked a little bit, and you've done a little bit more homework, wouldn't you agree that even though some of the comments are the same, that MGTOW is completely different than feminism?
Look, I will say in doing that video, I was kind of unfair, as in I didn't point out any differences. And I did that deliberately because I wanted to highlight the similarities. But yes, you are correct. Feminism and MGTOW are very different in the stances that they take, as in like political versus not being political. But I think that maybe MGTOW's just too young to be political. Like, it might develop into something political.
I hope not. I think that's kind of an issue. So, yeah, and I guess that was my whole thing, is that whole political, like that whole MGTOW versus feminism thing. I just think that they're two completely different animals. And, and again, I appreciate your willingness to come on and talk about that and to kind of address, my disagreements with it, and to kind of talk a little bit about our disagreements, with each other's philosophy per se, in a somewhat civil fashion. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. And I know you had some questions that you were waiting till the end to cover, and I think we're almost there. So why don't you shoot your questions towards me or your concerns, and let's address those.
I've actually ended up asking quite a few of them, but I will finish up with these little ones.
Okay.
So I wanted to know what you are particularly proud of in MGTOW. Like, what is something you think MGTOW has done extremely well?
I think MGTOW, MGTOW, the thing that it does best is teaching men that they don't need a woman's validation to measure their success.
Okay,
I think, this idea that you need a woman's validation, I think, is a problem. And if you go to the gym, you should go there for your health. If you want to buy a nice car, it's because you want to wrap the car around a tree at a high-speed accident. It's not because you want to impress a woman, If you buy a boat, it's because you enjoy the boat. It's not because you want to get some bitches with it. If that's a secondary or a tertiary, okay, that's fine. Like I said, guys need their dicks moisturized. I get it. But if your primary purpose in life is to live that Cucks Live Matter life, that's not the reason, and you're not MGTOW. But if you're you need to invest in yourself for you and for your well-being and for your life. And so I think the thing I'm proudest about MGTOW is that it teaches men to do that. And I think that in the beginning, a lot of men, they get confused and they get lost, because once you take gynocentric validation out of their life, they get lost. They don't know what to live for. And they don't realize that to live for themselves, because feminism and its war on marriage has been around since the 60s. So, for over 40 years, men have been taught to value women over men. And on top of that, they don't have father figures because of the war on marriage. Women are getting divorced. They're keeping men from their children, fathers from their children. So a lot of this whole generational, multi-generational wisdom has been lost, this institutional wisdom. So MGTOW teaches men they don't need a woman's validation. And I also think that the other thing I'm proud of is that MGTOW teaches men to avoid one-itis. So in other words, if you're in love with a woman and you love her and you hope to spend the rest of your life with her, and then you realize that, she's just a slut who's going to monkey branch to somebody else. A lot of men don't want to kill themselves. They don't have a reason to live because that woman was their reason to live. They devoted everything about their life to that woman. They devoted every action that they did for the well-being of the relationship, for the health of the relationship. And so when that woman basically runs a stake through their heart, through their back because they backstabbed, a lot of these men are lost and they get hurt. And so, it's important for men to be able to realize that it's not their fault. She was a whore, But the other thing I think that men, that MGTOW teaches men, and the other thing I'm proud of is that, the whole NAWALT argument, not all women are like that. Here, it's like this. This is my analogy. If you're walking in the swamp and you get attacked by an alligator, you don't go, well, fuck, I just didn't walk in the right spot of the swamp. Maybe I can walk next time and not get attacked by an alligator. Well, look, maybe you shouldn't be in the fucking swamp to begin with, right? Maybe you should, practice a little bit of self-preservation and avoid the swamp next time. It's like the little kid. The burner's hot, right? So the burner in the kitchen is hot on the stove. Little kid walks up, he touches his hand on the stove, he burns the shit out of him. The kid cries, he's in pain, he's got fucking blisters on his hands. And you're like, hey, fucker, don't be a dumbass and put your hand on the hot burner. You don't do that. And the kid learns a lesson. They're like, oh yeah, shit, that hurt. I'm not going to do it again. Or, these kids that take a knife and they stick it in the light socket and they electrocute themselves. Those that survive, they're like, fuck, that was retarded. Maybe I shouldn't do it again, right?
Natural selection.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, if they die, then obviously that, hey, that gene pool has now solved itself. I'm okay with that, But at the same token, we don't do that with women. We don't do that with women. We don't say, hey, look, if you were with a woman and she was a cheating, lying whore, go find another one. Well, that's what we tell men. That's what society tells men. MGTOW says, no, don't do that. If she's going to be a cheating, lying whore, odds are the rest of them are. And the smart MGTOW, the ones that are actually, the ones that are really thinking, and there's a lot of them out there, they realize that they don't even need to prove that she's cheating to realize that she's not worth the effort. They realize that if she's lying to them, or, she's lying to cover other shit up, and if she's covering other shit up, she's not worth the investment.
Yeah.
So that's that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is where I actually admire MGTOW for that, because I do think that focusing on oneself, looking after oneself, figuring out interests that you like and doing things that make you happy, that's a really good message that a lot of men miss nowadays because feminism covers it all up. You need to learn to be happy in yourself and realize that, no, you don't need a woman to be happy. That it's not a standard that you have to be married.
Right.
That doesn't prove life success.
Well, and I think that gynocentrism, though, is also relegated a woman's place to just being a sex hole. Because women are so independent now, and women are so focused on themselves, they refuse to, in general, I'm saying, they refuse to provide emotional support to a man. And anytime a woman commits to a man, she's told she's settling. And that's why I love the makeup. The makeup is fantastic. You see these women, they run around and they cake all this makeup on their face and they turn into 8s and 9s. The second you take out that makeup and you take it off and you're like, holy fuck, you're an orc.
I tried the makeup and it didn't take off all of my makeup. It left some of it on there and I was like, that's lame. What are you doing?
I actually was going to do kind of like a makeup meme about you and I was going to put it up there, but I decided to wait till after the stream.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, it must be great. Some of the ones I got, I was like, I'm still wearing eyeliner, guys. That's right. Not accurate. There's gonna be some. I guarantee you, there's gonna be some entertainment value when I do my little makeup app meme on you. So you're welcome. It's going to be beautiful.
It will be. It absolutely will be. It will do you justice. How about that? Do you justice from a DDJ Bukkake Chokeslam perspective.
Sounds good.
All right. So yeah, so you know, I think that that's the thing that I'm most proud about MGTOW. MGTOW saves lives. You know, so that's the other thing too. Yeah. The other thing that MGTOW does is it you know, and I don't want to really rant about this too much, but MGTOW teaches men they're not alone. You know, every time a man goes through a divorce, or he goes through a relationship breakup, or some woman abandons him, or she betrays him, you know, MGTOW says, look, you're not alone. There are other men who've been through this, and we can help you off the cliff. If you take my hand, I can help you off the cliff, and I can teach you the skills if you're willing to learn, and, you know, and walk you off that cliff. Now, if you think that you're going to be suicidal anyway, you know, MGTOW are like, all right, well, fuck, jump. Just don't make a mess, you know? And don't be such a loser. You're going to fail at that, too. At least be successful in your suicide.
It's terrible, but yeah, I get what you mean.
It's a reality. It's a brutal reality, you know? And that's the point. Men have realized that you cannot make someone do what they don't want to do. You can't. You can only provide them the education. You could provide them the way, the path, the knowledge. But in the end, they have to make the choice for themselves.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right. And so that's why, like, you know, I make videos and I wrote my books to educate people. I'm not trying to be an activist. I'm not trying to, you know, change feminists' minds, because the arguments you bring up about how feminists switch off, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely on point. They number one, they don't know when to shut the fuck up. And number two, they don't listen for knowledge or understanding. They listen to respond. And that's an issue. So, yeah, so that's, I think I've answered that question and killed it. So go ahead, next one.
All right, I'm going to keep it kind of short because I know we're going for quite a while.
I'm okay with it. I mean, everybody, are you guys okay with the length of the stream? I think we're good. I mean, I know it's been 90 minutes, but I think that it's been a good back and forth.
Oh, wow.
Let me talk to the audience. I mean, we got over 100, we have 111 people watching right now. So, audience, are you guys good with the stream? Do you continue it, or do you think that, do you think we should let Lily run away? Okay, everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
All right, they're good. That's good.
Yeah, so ask all your questions. I mean, I'm here. I have time this morning. If you have time, I am here to, you know, as long as you're willing to chat with me, as long as the conversation is relevant and organic.
All right, cool. So what are your criticisms of MGTOW? What areas do you think it should improve in?
I think this whole MGTOW level thing is retarded. You know, this idea that, oh, you need to be a MGTOW ghost and go out and live in the woods. I think that's the short bus making all the stops, because we don't live in that society anymore. We are in a connected society where, look, you could be the guy that lives out in the wilds of Colorado, or, you know, up in the hills in Idaho, and the satellite's going to know you're there. So as a MGTOW man, you have to learn to ghost in plain sight. So I think that's the thing that is that I think I disagree with this idea of breaking off with society. Now, with that in mind, I do believe that MGTOW, by definition, means that even if you're living in ghosted in plain sight, that you are going to be somewhat solitary. So there's going to be a solitary piece where you know, where you're going to have to learn to live in that solitude, especially the emotional solitude. But again, so that MGTOW level thing, I know that a lot of people don't subscribe to it anymore. But you know, it crops up occasionally, and that's just, it's one of the things I disagree with. The other thing I disagree with about MGTOW is there are some MGTOW out there and who are collectivists. And I'm against this whole collectivist attitude. Oh, but the MGTOW movement, or we should go be activists. You know, go play hide and go fuck yourself. MGTOW is about the individual. It's about a man going his own way. It's not about all of us being a fucking herd of sheep and being led to a slaughter. And the second that people start talking about grouping up and doing shit and all that other crap, I completely disagree with that, because a man has to make that for his own decision. Now, do I believe that making your own decision and living a solitary life means that you need to avoid other MGTOW? No, absolutely not. I think that, you know, men need to strengthen men, whether it's through the adversity of debate and argument, or whether it's through, you know, fellowship and sharing knowledge and communicating. One of the greatest strengths of MGTOW is that it's multi-generational. There are MGTOW men who are grandfathers, and there are MGTOW men who are young adults. They're 14, 15, 16 years old. And I sit in the Discord occasionally, and TFM's Monkey Business Discord is fantastic because these people talk to each other across the generations. And you know, you always hear about this whole generation gap where people are like, oh, you know, you can't talk to the younger generation or you can't talk to the older generation. And I hear these fucking 45-minute discussions between a guy who's 50 and a young kid who's 16 years old, and they're going back and forth. And it's fantastic, and it's good, solid, positive communication. So, you know, getting together and steel sharpening steel is good because the 50-year-old is learning something. The 16-year-old is learning something, and they're sharing, they're bridging that gap the way that society was meant to do it. This is the multi-generational wisdom that the single mom epidemic created by feminism's war on marriage has tried to stop. But I see it happening. So even though I oppose this whole collectivist attitude, I do believe that, you know, we can get together in small communities and have that interaction and make it be positive. But yeah, those are my main disagreements with certain, and not a lot of MGTOW subscribe to those things, the whole leveling system or the whole MGTOW collectivism, activism bullshit thing. But those are the two things that I would disagree with as far as because there's elements of MGTOW that want that.
Are you ready for this next one? It's the one I've been waiting to ask.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
All right. Is MGTOW lonely?
Yes. By definition, it is. Yes. I mean, because here's the thing. So TFM does a video. I think it's like the 5 stages of grief. I forget the name of the video, but he talks about the grief cycle, and he uses as his template. He uses the grief cycle that's used with the death of a family member, and basically, so there's levels of grief. So you go through stages of grief before you can get over the death of somebody. But when you're first discovering MGTOW and you realize that the MRA situation isn't the right point, because the thing is, most people don't come to MGTOW. They don't just wake up one day and they're like, I'm going to go MGTOW. No, they go through stages of red pill rage. They go through stages of being an MRA. You know, and many people go to the MRA route, or they go to the generic red pill bro route before they actually ever get to MGTOW. They really end up here. They don't really seek us out. I mean, there are some exceptions, and there are men out there who are confirmed bachelors who are like, I'm just going to be a bachelor no matter what. But most people, they're like Denny's, right? Denny's is a 24-hour restaurant in the United States. You don't go to Denny's, you end up there because it's a 24-hour restaurant, right? It's the same thing with MGTOW. And getting there, you lose your religion. You know, I mean, the thing about the red pill rage is that you realize that everything the blue pill cucks have told you is wrong. All the conventional wisdom about male-female relations and interactions is wrong. Everything that you thought about the legal system is wrong. And it's completely opposite of what you're being told. So then you feel like it's like Neo in the Matrix. You're like, well, shit, am I crazy? Or is this shit really real and I've just been fucking blind to it the whole time? And then you realize it's real. And then you're like, fuck, do I need a tinfoil hat? Am I going crazy? What the fuck's going on here? Well, and that whole process is extremely lonely. Because you feel isolated. You feel like even if you discover it before you discover MGTOW, you feel like you're lost and you don't know where you fit in. You're like, well, where do I fit in society? Now that I know this and I can't uncuck myself or recuck myself, how do I figure it out? It's like that. There's a scene in The Matrix where one of the guys is eating a steak and he goes, man, I know this steak isn't real. I know that this is all a figment of my imagination, but man, the steak tastes really good and I want to be plugged back in and I want to forget everything. There are MGTOW men who are like that, and at some level, I went through that as well. But you know, once you get beyond those stages of grief, and you accept it. Once you accept it, you're no longer lonely. You appreciate solitude for what it truly is. And the thing about it is as a man, you don't just go get in shape. You don't just go and improve your job. You go get hobbies, or you reinvigorate old hobbies you have, or you learn different things. And then all of a sudden, as you get older, you start learning and start gravitating to like philosophy and educating and self-educating yourself, whether library books or things you purchase or things you read online or talking to people, and you get exposed to these different things and these different philosophies, which causes you to think in a completely different way. And then you realize that not only are you not alone, you are supported by a loose brotherhood of men who went through exactly what you went through, regardless of their age, their race, their nationality, or culture. Any culture that has caught this feminism, gynocentric system, most of the MGTOW go through the same thing. So that's why, you see MGTOW have different conversations based on where they're at in their emotional maturity. So, some men are retarded and you're like, holy shit, you're a potato. But there's other guys you're like, dude, I want to talk to you all the time. So, because they always have things to offer. So when it comes to that, is MGTOW lonely? Absolutely it is. It's lonely for every man who goes there. But once you get through that loneliness, once you push through it, you get to that next level where it's not lonely anymore. You enjoy your solitude, but at the same time, you're still part of society. Because you know how to ghost and because you know how to navigate those waters, your life is better for it.
Yeah. All right. My next thing is, do you think that it will get to the point, or has got to the point, where it's chasing zebras, for lack of better words? Like the saying, speak of the devil and the devil shall arrive, or whatever it is. Do you think that in some ways, once people become red-pilled or MGTOW or whatever it is that they're doing, all they can see is the bad things, and they basically ignore the good things?
During the red pill rage, I would absolutely agree with that. Because, the thing is it's like, when you buy a car, right? So you buy, I don't know, we'll just say like a Corvette, or you buy a nice Mercedes, right? Well, once you buy the Mercedes and you just purchase it, you start seeing Mercedes everywhere. You start seeing the Corvette everywhere. Whatever car you drive, you start seeing it everywhere. If you buy a new coat, you start recognizing other people who wear that coat, and you're more cognizant of what people are wearing when you buy new clothes. The same thing is true with MGTOW. When people get through that red pill rage cycle, they get off the other end. They realize during that process they start noticing these things more, and there's going to be a time period where that's all they see, and that's what inspires that red pill rage. And so and here's the sad part is that not all people come out of the red pill rage. Some people stay there, and what other people don't realize is that with the red pill rage, they think, oh, well, I get through the red pill rage, now I'm MGTOW, everything's fine. No, that's not it at all. That red pill rage can come back. And I've seen, in my own life, I've seen the red pill rage come back, half a dozen times, just in different sets of circumstances, because of those triggering life events in my life that cause that to happen. And that's not because I'm weak or anything else, but I mean, every human, whenever you suffer a traumatic experience, no matter what it is, you're always going to have triggered feelings based on that trauma, and MGTOW are no different. So when it comes to that, there is going to be some confirmation bias. But again, once you come out that other side, once you get through that grief cycle, you don't see it as often. And when it does happen, you realize that it's happening. And so even though the emotions get to you, you realize that you're being potentially unreasonable, and then you go from there.
Okay. Well, I think that was pretty much it, and you did a really good job of explaining things, so I'm impressed with that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, I think that, for a female, you did a good job as well.
Oh, yes. It's all the female pride in me. That's what it is.
Right. Well, and, you did a good job not getting triggered, so I think that's good. You definitely spoke your points. And I know that from prior conversations, there's areas where we are going to disagree on, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So let's do this, guys. I'm going to go ahead and open it for questions now, do a Q&A session. I'm going to touch on the questions already in my dashboard. So if you guys have redeemed, if you're on Twitch TV or you're on the desktop, if you redeem your Bukkake Chokeslams to ask your questions, go ahead and do that. Don't repeat your questions. If you are on mobile or you're on Roku, go ahead and ask those questions in the chat. And I'm going to try to go back and forth between the two. so that I don't miss a lot, okay? And let's just go from there. I'm going to probably go, we'll see what the questions look like, and then we'll go from there. Juan, you actually asked this question earlier. I'm going to hit your question first. So the Juan the MGTOW says, question, you seem to be almost right on the money when it comes to MGTOW. How did you come to the MGTOW philosophy? And second question, you're a little off. Are you willing to educate yourself further in MGTOW philosophy? Yes, no, and why? And third question, why do you care what MGTOWs do? And this is to Lily. So I'll answer the first two questions, and then Lily, I'll let you get the second one. Also, if you're going to put questions in the chat, let's do one at a time because I don't want to miss them, because three-part questions like that kind of fucked up the chat. So Juan, I actually came to the MGTOW philosophy after being an MRA. There's a video I just put out recently called Why Misandry Today? That talks about how I came to the MGTOW philosophy, and if you want a more detailed explanation, TFM on his channel has my initial interview that I did with him called DDJ's Inferno. He's got it as a full 90-minute segment, and then there's I think there's another, like a 6-part group, so if you only want to watch parts of it at a time, you can. So, and then Lily, the question, and then you said second, you're a little off. Are you willing to educate yourself further in MGTOW philosophy? Yes, no, and why? I think that educating myself obviously is something that's a lifelong process. I think that people should be doing it all the time. I appreciate your opinion that I'm a little off, but do I give a fuck about it? Not really. No disrespect to you. I'm just keeping it real with you. And yeah, I mean, I think that men should be improving and educating themselves regardless. If you're not learning, then, what the fuck are you there for? If you're treading water, eventually you're going to drown, so you got to be heading in a direction. And I think education is a direction, regardless of where it comes from. And so, Lily, for this question, why do you care about what MGTOW do?
Okay. I care what MGTOW do because I'm at the age where no matter what happens, it is going to affect me. So I need to know what's going on, and it's also going to affect the men in my life.
Well, because you got multiple personalities. Lives is okay.
Well, Sally is very controlling.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to affect the men in my life as well. I don't want to see people I care about get hurt.
Okay. Dr. Proctor, I actually discussed that with her prior to the stream. I'm not going to talk about how many sexual partners she's had. That's not a question she's comfortable with. So I just wanted you to know I saw the question, but that's not one I'm going to ask. Brazilla 4000 question. Lily, men did not destroy relationships between men and women, so why should men be responsible to fix the problem?
Two things with this one. One, technically, the manginas did a great job at destroying things by helping women. Secondly, as I said during the stream, sometimes something is easy to break with one person, but it needs two people to fix it.
Okay. Bullet Machine, question for Lily. How do you expect men to come back to women if the laws are getting worse by the day? It is now a crime to fail at flirting in Amsterdam. Wolf whistling is classified as a hate crime in Nottinghamshire, UK. It's only getting worse from now.
Look, I think a lot of the laws are so ridiculously stupid I can't even comprehend them, and I don't necessarily expect men to come back. There is a point where it's too late, but I expect laws to change. So, sorry, that doesn't really answer the question entirely.
Okay. This question is for me from Muslim Gal. Do you think Sharia law represents rape culture? In some ways, yeah, I do. I mean, look, there's an aspect of, and I don't remember how recent it is, and obviously Sharia law doesn't really change, but there's a part of rape culture where if a woman gets raped and she doesn't have 4 witnesses to it, it's not considered rape, and it's considered adultery. I mean, rape happens, and it's a crime, and it should be handled as a crime. I think that's a problem. I also have an issue with the Islamic idea of child abuse. I think that marrying children, and we talked about this on the TFM show when you were on it, I completely disagree with Islam and Sharia's views on child marriage. I think it's retarded at best, and I think that people that are abusing prepubescent children, I think, need to be quickly and painfully put down. All right, next question is from Dreamy Music, and it's no disrespect to you, Muslim Gal. I mean, you're very articulate, and obviously this is something I think you said you may have disagreed with at some point as well. So, I disagree with Sharia. not just for that, but for other reasons as well. I mean, we could talk about that at a different time, but you know, I mean, I don't hate you as a result of it per se. So Dreamy Music asks next question for the guest. How much of what DDJ has said do you think you've actually absorbed?
Well, I would like to think I've absorbed a reasonable amount of it. Like, I've spoken to DDJ prior to this, and I'm always willing to listen to everyone's viewpoints in everything. So I hope I've taken in some of it, but it hasn't necessarily changed all of my views.
Okay. All right. All right, Juan, thank you for addressing that. I'm not going to try to dig back that question because I think it's gone. All right. Of course, JD has a question for DDJ. All right. What do you think about the fact that according to a study that you and TFM cite, the biological mother is the abuser 27% of the time and the biological father is abuser 15% of the time, which is more than half. Meanwhile, there are more than 4 times as single mothers than single fathers, according to Pew Research. So what does that mean? That single fathers are disproportionately likely to abuse their children compared to single mothers? No, I don't. And I don't know what study you're going through, but I can tell you this right now. The stuff that I've read from the CDC says that single moms are the abuser like 67% of the time, and single fathers are the abusers like 12%. So I don't agree with that at all. I think that your basis is flawed, and I think that I mean, I would have to see what you were looking at, because you were saying the study that I and TFM cite. I don't know what study you're talking about, because the CDC study I have, it shows those numbers for single mothers as far higher. So it is what it is. And specifically, just so you know, there are, for those people who don't know, they have done studies about single mothers and the abuse rates for single mothers, and it is extremely high. So next question is from Tao the Wanderer. It says, I have seen how absolutely life-destroying your divorce was. I myself do not want to suffer the same fate, but I do want to learn. The laws are getting worse by the day. What legal methods do we have to slam the brakes on this mess? Honestly, Tao, I don't think we do. I agree with Lily that we have to work together to fix it, but I don't see that happening. I don't see women coming to the table in any kind of legitimate force. And even if women who do come to the table, like you see a lot of these anti-feminist females that are there, some of them are just cosplaying MRAs, and others actually do care. But you know, you look at the largest female MRA entity on the internet, which is Honey Badger Radio, and they've got like 25,000 people. But when it comes to actually changing the laws, you don't see any of these women talking about changing the laws or advocating for it. Even the ones who call themselves MRAs, like you listen to Lauren Southern or Roman Millennial, or any of these other women who are supposedly anti-feminists. Not a single one of them is talking about changing the laws in any realistic way. They might bring it up in passing, like they kind of like you spice your food, you salt and pepper your food. They might do that in passing, but there's no legitimate effort to do that, because if they were, you would see these people getting together more often with like Karen Strom or some of the people that actually give a shit. And again, I don't know much about what Karen Strom does, and I'm just going off of the little bit I've seen of her. So I just think the best way to get rid of this is just to go MGTOW, be invisible, pray the collapse doesn't happen and people come to their senses, and if they don't, prepare for the worst. Next question is from Seed Bank. Question: how are the laws going to change when 50% of the voting base are female and it would go against what is in their favor? Seed Bank, it's actually 54%. Women are the majority of voters, and they're not going to vote against their interest. It's just not going to happen. Filthy Pigeon asks Lily, what should a woman prioritize today? Child, family, or career? And does she have children? Do you have children?
I don't have children. Okay. I'm too young for children. Okay. As for the prioritizing between family and career, I think, 1, it should be a balance, and 2, it would actually depend on the woman. Like, some women are career women and some women are family women, and some women can balance that. So it's kind of a interesting part.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go from the chat now to the questions that were redeemed with the Bukkake Choke Slams, and I'm going to go ahead and start taking them in order. All right, so here we go. First question is from JMO33NY. For Lily, your channel is fairly new. With all the red pill topics like the skeptic community and the anti-feminism, how did you become interested in MGTOW?
Well, I kind of stumbled across it by accident. Like, I joined Twitter when I started my account, or shortly after anyways, and I thought MGTOW was like MRAs. I was wrong. I was very wrong. But it got me thinking about other things, like how my father would fare in a divorce, or if I had a son, what kind of world would he grow up in? So I guess I kind of stumbled into it and found out that some of the points weren't completely crazy.
Okay. Question again. This is from Filthy Pigeon. Men who did not serve could not vote. Do you think it was fair for women to get the vote without serving?
Only because men can now vote without serving.
Not in the United States.
They can't?
No. If you don't sign up for selective services in the United States as a man, you not only cannot vote, you can't have a federal job, and if you're a college student, you can't get financial aid.
Well, that's something that needs to change. Here, everyone can vote regardless of whether they've served or not.
Okay. And do you advise, this is again from Filthy Pigeon, do you advise young women not to sleep around and to find a husband and have babies?
I would advise them not to go crazy sleeping around because it has psychological effects that feminists usually skip over. But, I mean, finding a husband and marrying, that's not necessarily the best priority for everyone anyways. So
okay. And this is another question for you from John FLK. Does she think women in general are going to notice the men going their own way, and why would they be intimidated by men doing so? Maybe it's because they realize their level of dependence on men. What's your response?
I think like the older generation of women won't notice a thing. They won't care. But I think maybe the younger generation might care, and I don't think it's because that they're going to be dependent on men. I think it's because we like men in our lives. As I've said, they bring more to the table than just finance or dependence or whatever. Like, there is emotional support there. Some people look forward to relationships and love and emotional support and that sort of stuff.
Okay. Next question from the plumber. Lily, why is it unacceptable for an older man to desire a 20-year-old woman? Why would an older man give an age-appropriate woman the best years of his life if she's not willing to give him the best years of her life?
Okay, this is kind of like the hypergamy thing, where men like fertile women, so generally younger women. That's not a problem. I see that as a thing, but I could also understand that a younger woman might not want an older man because, I'm sorry guys, men hit the wall too. Your sperm value decreases. So, biologically speaking, a younger woman is more attractive and would be more attractive, and they are attracted to slightly older men, but at some point the age gap gets too big.
Got it. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So T. Enfield, I saw your question about which positions do I and TFM disagree. We've actually discussed that in multiple streams, so you can dig those up. I'm not going to touch on them here. Next question is from Flying Gamepad. Question: religion has some good ideas. Do you think that we can make the idiots believe our good ideas without telling them that the plant told us that they would prefer water? Like Idiocracy?
Is that for me?
I think it's, I don't know, we can both answer it, I guess. I think religion does have good ideas. I think that, you know, if you look at religion in the history of society, a lot of the religious value systems, and this is something TFM and I have talked about, a lot of the religious value systems actually had real world applications. So it was like, you know, so religion functioned through parable as a way to teach people not to be, you know, booger-eating morons and not to destroy their society. And Idiocracy is a hilarious movie. It's We Are There Now. So, did you have anything you wanted to add, Lily?
No, I would I would basically agree with you on that religion does provide a solid moral base for, you know, treat your parents correctly and don't be a dick to people. But I don't know, I don't like religion in general, and I will make videos on it and everyone will hate me for it, but that's what I'll do.
Sounds good. All right. And then this will be the last question of the stream because I'm looking here. I want to double check something real quick. Yeah, so I have two questions. And so I'm going to ask Juan MGTOW's question last, but I have one more question before that. So the last two questions. First question is Uncle June. Historically speaking, half or less of men pass their genes on where almost nearly all women do so. What's wrong with some men going MGTOW and others having two wives? And this is to you, Lily.
I don't know. I don't like polygamy because like it detracts resources from, I know this is going to sound like hypergamy, but whatever. It detracts resources from the main family. Like if you have to spread it over two, that lessens the chance of success. And the first part of that question was, sorry?
I don't know. I just deleted it. So
well, that's not
tough shit.
Sorry.
All right, there it is. All right, so Juan the MGTOW, this is the last question of the stream. Question for Lily: if you're younger than 30, you are aware of are you aware of the wall, and what are you going to do about it? Do you plan on getting married before that, or you're holding out for Mr. Right?
The wall's not concerning me. My life will turn out however it turns out.
Okay, so you're not worried about it. So the cock carousel's okay for you for right now?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So I guess that actually leads me to my own question then. So are you dating men then? I mean, or do you avoid them, or are you dating? I mean, like, are you dating men for casual dating, or do you date men for relationship? In other words, what is it do you look for?
If I dated, I would be looking for long committed relationships. But as it stands, I don't really date. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that is our stream, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. I initially envisioned it to be approximately an hour, but holy shit, we hit up 2 hours, and I think it actually worked out. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all the questions. I will work on this to upload it. Again, if I upload this one before I upload my last live stream, my Sunday stream, it's mainly because the less of the technical issues. I had to go through the other stream and just do lots of post-production, and it's taking me a long time to do it. So I am working on that. I appreciate everybody. Like I said, I appreciate everybody coming in. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to email me. And yeah, and you know, obviously, there's a lot that we disagree on, but I think there's a fair amount that we do agree on. And it's nice. And Lily, thank you for being civil, and for having a sense of humor.
Oh yeah, I'm not funny at all, really.
Right.
DGJ, thank you for having me on this stream and be willing to have an open communication. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and stop there, and I hope you guys have a great day. I'm hoping to put this stream up sooner than later, so we'll go from there. Also, there is as an FYI, the TFM 420 show is going to be streamed on Twitch at tomorrow or Wednesdays at 8 a.m. The TFM live show is at 7 p.m. on Saturday, and there is a possibility that TFM, myself, and Kat will be on Tommy Sotomayor later this evening. So with that out of the way, you can go from there. And again, you'll notice that my channel is slowly expanding. If you want to support me on Patreon, I have a link in the bottom. If you want to look at my book, The Feminist Lie, there's a link there as well. And if you want to join the Minds group for MGTOW, the link is also at the bottom as well. And then I'll put all the rest of the links in the description when I get the video uploaded. Thanks again, guys. I hope you have a great day.
Bye.